Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're listening from. Welcome to the Change Management Simplified podcast, where we will explain and discuss what change management is really about, using real examples alongside principles of change management based on our experiences on projects, transformations, change initiatives, and of course, the home experiences as well. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Change Management Simplified podcast. Yet again, thank you for listening. Thank you for sharing. You do need to like more and you do need to press follow more often. I need more followers. Let's grow this podcast and let's share our experiences. But as I promised, when I first started this episode was that I will bring a mixture of topics, both personal, when I say personal, normal life examples or discussions in regards to change management and how you prepare for it, plus also those at work that I've observed as well. And today it's my pleasure to actually bring a friend of mine, and we are going to discuss how someone prepares for career change, because she has just gone through an incredible big change in a career path, and I'll let her speak to that to give it more justice. And then part two of the interview, or the discussion actually, rather than an interview, we will talk about her specialism and how it actually impacts us at work and how we within the business deal with it, or how we would like the business to do more about it. And today's topic or discussion, as you will see through the conversation, we will end up on the mental health at work discussion and points. But first and foremost, I would like to introduce my very good friend. Should I say your name, first name? No?
Yeah.
Her name is Chipo. And as you know, on this podcast, we are supposed to be anonymous. I don't know if I ever told you that, but yeah, so hence I don't usually mention, actually sometimes I don't even usually mention my name, but since she's mentioned her name, my name is Rachel, we're going to keep it to that. And then, yes, we'll just take it from there. So hi, Chipo. Welcome to the Change Management Simplified podcast.
Hi, Rachel. Thanks for having me.
It's a pleasure. I've been looking forward to having you on here because I've been so excited about your journey in your career path, and where you're at now. So I'm intrigued to learn more, but also how you actually progress through this career change, massive, drastic career change that for me is actually quite scary, because I think I'm a bit comfortable where I am now, and I'm like, no more studies and no more career changes for me.
Well, change is ongoing, isn't it? And yeah, I think I'm still sort of I'm probably past the transition stage, and I'm now trying to settle into it. So yeah, but it's been big. It's been big.
So tell us about your journey. You're an accountant.
Wow. So they say, right? Yeah, so I worked in finance, as you know, for many
And graduated your first degree in finance.
accounting and business
Accounting,
information systems. Yes. Um,
exactly. And you got a first class in your dissertation.
I did. That was hard work, but yes, hard work always pays off, guys. So yeah, studied that, as you know, and did my years due diligence in the finance sector. It was a good journey. Every single job I've had has been absolutely amazing. Every single challenge I've faced in my career has propelled me to the next level. And I don't give up. I don't give up easily. I might crumble. I might be like, oh my gosh, what's going on here? But I always get up and I keep moving. How many years?
I'm not going to talk about the years. I don't want to look old.
More than 15 years in the finance sector, I think I pulled. maybe even
Wow.
more. I can't remember specifically. And as you know, I've always had a thing about working with people, right?
Yes.
And I've always sort of done little jobs here and there, working in the care sector, just ad hoc alongside.
So before we go there,
Mm,
before let's give people some context. Where you started off from professionally to where you're at now,
okay.
um, and then why you made that change and how you made that change.
So yeah, obviously started off in finance, didn't I? And I had very good jobs, very long-standing careers. I didn't hop, skip, and jump through jobs. I stayed quite a long time because I always had brilliant teams, brilliant systems to work with. I thoroughly enjoyed it. Um, but I think it got to a point where I was feeling unfulfilled. Um, I knew I enjoyed doing the finance side and I knew I liked my jobs, but I just always felt like there's more that I can be doing. So for me to
What
trans
do you mean when you say, sorry to cut you off, when you say you always felt unfulfilled, what do you mean by that? In what way? During 15 years of a career?
it the way I saw it was within finance, it was me communicating with the system, right? Of course, you've got the team around you, and yeah, you do stop here and there to have conversations with the people around you. But it was just me communicating with the system. There was no human to human interaction I didn't feel in terms of the job I was doing. And that's the aspect that I felt was lacking. I wanted to work in an environment where I had a lot more human interactions.
Mm.
So I think it took me a while to gather up the courage to accept that and acknowledge it as what I really wanted to do, to feel like I was living in my purpose, if anything. Do you know what I mean? Um,
Yeah.
so so that's what I felt like I could do more. I could work with people. I want to make a difference to people, not just to systems and spreadsheets and profit and loss and balance sheets, which I weren't my favorite thing ever. So yeah, so it was that element, and I suppose going through the motions of, well, then what? What do I want to do? Do I want to be a teacher? Do I want to be a therapist? Do I want to be a life coach? What do I want to do? And then trying to kind of work through that, which I think was the hardest part of it, trying to figure out exactly where I felt like I fitted. Um,
So
so
how did you go about narrowing it down to where you got to now?
um, I sort of kind of had to sit back and write it out. If I'm honest, I had to write it out in my journal
Mm.
and sort of do a list of professions that I thought maybe I could fit into, and then narrow it down to the last two, and it was teaching and nursing. Those were the last
Okay.
two.
So your vision was to go into a role or career path that made you more interactive with
Yeah,
people,
absolutely.
um, and then assessed your strength, I guess, to what you wanted to do and passion.
Absolutely. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Um, but obviously, teaching was a completely new area to me. I'd never
Mm.
taught, I'd never been in a classroom. However, nursing, I had done a few jobs here and there within the care sector. And at that, probably a few years before making this decision, I had meddled in mental health. So I worked as a mental
Mm.
health carer. Um, and so I thought, okay, I've got this experience. Maybe I need to explore it further and see how it goes. Um, but again, it wasn't just quit my job and go into it. There were other
Yeah.
factors that kind of almost made it the next best decision, the next best move, if you know what I
Yeah.
mean. I relocated. Um, and in that relocation, I suddenly thought maybe this is the time that I need to make that transition because I wasn't going to keep the job I was in at that time, which was a brilliant job. And I was moving to a completely different area. And at that point, I was sort of umming and ahhing about, do I want to do finance anymore, really? Because I can find another job in the new area I'm going to. Or do I want to take this opportunity to explore sort of the care sector more and see if that's what I want to do. So it was a very difficult transition because it wasn't just my career, it was my whole life was moving, my
Yeah.
family was moving.
Your family.
It was a big change. Yeah.
That is scary. That is a scary move that you made. I remember when you mentioned it to me, and I thought she's a crazy on that one. But at the same time, I knew me knowing you over all this time that by the time you get to such a decision, you've assessed pretty much all the likely scenarios, and you were set to go. But I have to say, I was not worried, but I was nervous for you because I wouldn't do that. I know some people on here might think, oh, but you preach change. Believe me, I do. I'm very good at preaching change, by the way, and I will do it very well. However, I also have to convince myself about a change. So when I see someone making a drastic change, like leaving a 15-year career that they've grown and they have developed and has got experience, and as you know, when we go into these roles, experience matters a lot, to get to the next level. And you just completely changed from accounting to nursing, mental health. I was thinking, this is crazy, but she's always been crazy.
Mm. A happy crazy, let me say, but sometimes you need
A happy
you
crazy.
need to be that little bit sort of adventurous isn't the word, but sort of daring, you know,
I'm not daring. Mm-mm.
especially in the career that I am in now. But yeah, we'll get to that eventually.
Okay. So how have you now you've gone on to you've gone back, you went back. So no, you didn't just change career paths and found a job in mental health nursing. You went back to uni as well
Well,
to
I had to
specialize.
start from the bottom, completely new profession. So I
Mm,
started from the bottom. I went in just as a mental health support worker. And
mm,
so, nurses were my seniors. I was reporting to the nurses. So I was just, you know,
beginning.
doing the lowest position. So I went in as a mental health support worker because I kind of thought, right, if I do this full time, really kind of get a feel for the environment, for the policies, for the types of situations that we have to deal with, then maybe I can see if it's for me or not. I didn't want to just jump into studying in case I then kind of regretted it or had sort of second thoughts. I wanted to be
Yeah.
sure. So I started working as a support worker. And I did that, gosh, I can't remember. Must have been a year, maybe just over a year. Um, and that transition, I think, set me up for the next step. Everything
So that was
else.
your trial
That
run.
was my trial run. So I thought,
That was your UA team. Okay.
yeah, and because it was such a big change, um, I didn't want to get myself overwhelmed.
Yeah.
So that's probably why I decided, right, let me start from the bottom and see how it goes. Um,
Because it's also not an easy specialism within nursing
Absolutely
because
not.
I I I can't compare to what I see or observe in people, in my role as a change practitioner, because I mostly focus or work with people or deal with people agenda issues as they're going through change. Because as a change is introduced, as you've said, we go through the change journey very differently. Each individual, go through it very differently. And ultimately, as you're saying, as you seem to have, as you've experienced or gone through or planned out, the success of the change is not about implementing, the change, implementing, for example, maybe from a work perspective, a system, or you going and finishing the degree. Is actually making it successful and adopting to it and living the vision of that implementation or change initiative beyond the completion of your degree, but also here maybe from a system. How do people use it? And sometimes the change that or the emotional state that individuals go through is incredible. And sometimes, depending on how drastic it is and what stage, especially during the transition, it can be really mentally draining for me, because I get so many people issues to deal with.
Absolutely.
However, I have to try and take a step back and step out of it and say, okay, this person is saying this, but what do they actually mean? I have to take myself out of the picture, and I'm always usually the last person that I think about. It's actually usually my boss who asks me about how am I.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's quite true.
so
Yeah.
that's so for me, and that's just me seeing it very lightly at work. And someone will go through that change for a limited period of that duration of the transition, but for you, this is, how many hours do you do? Is it standard hours you do? How long is your
So
shift?
if I'm working a day shift, which is from morning to night time, it's 12 hours. If I'm working a night shift, it's 13 hours.
Okay, so you are going from a 9 to 5
Mm,
job to a 12, 13 hours day shift in an area that you hadn't specialized before,
mm,
but in mental
mm-hmm,
health.
mm-hmm,
Now, someone might say you are good crazy. We're gonna call it good crazy.
mm.
You are good crazy, and a weird one at the same time. That is a drastic
It
change.
is. It is indeed. Um, I think more so for me because, unfortunately or fortunately, it depends which way you look at it. It was a very difficult time when I decided, right, I've enjoyed doing the support work and I'm ready to take the
Mm.
next step and go and study. COVID hit.
Oh,
So
yes.
all my training was completed during the lockdown. So I didn't stop when everybody else was at home and couldn't move. I was one of those people
You
with a
had to
special
go.
letter saying to the police, saying, I am actually going to a profession that needs to be attending work. So I
Yeah.
had the right to be on the road. So I never stopped. So we were having to deal with, um, the beginning of it all. I was still a support worker when we went into full lockdown. Um, we were having to deal with people falling sick and not being able to come to work, the shortages, trying to keep the people that we care for comfortable, safe, not scared because obviously they have their own mental health issues going on, and then there's this pandemic.
Well, they do say, well, maybe I say to myself, I'm not sure, but sometimes when you're put into situations that one, you didn't plan for, and two, that are very unexpected, and they are pushing you outside your comfort zone in a scenario like the COVID scenario that we had in lockdown, it pushes you to your best. But I think to me, it sounds like it tested you. That was one of the extreme tests that put you out there, that made you question whether you're making the right decision or not. So as you say, it depends how you look at it, fortunate or unfortunate. I actually think probably this time I would say it's fortunate because you've gone through it and, succeeded.
Mm,
But at that point in time, I'm sure you're thinking, oh, this is crazy.
absolutely. Absolutely. But I will say that we had a lot of support. Where I was, we had a lot of support. The processes just kind of fell into place. We did what we needed to do. All of our clients felt supported, safe. So, yeah, we got through it. And then obviously I then applied for this course, and decided, well, I'm a postgrad. Let me do the master's route, which is the condensed training course. And I went in, and even through the training, because you have to go, and do your practical training in hospitals in different areas. It was sort of when I first hand saw how a lot of these hospitals and, units dealt with the pandemic is when I knew this is what I want to do. This is what I wanted.
You wanted to be part of that
I
excitement.
want, it wasn't even excitement. It was like, I want to be able to help people through difficult times. This is what I want to do.
That is, that, and on that note, I would like to say thank you to the health sector because they were incredibly under a very stressful situation.
Mm,
Um, they had to go in and do their jobs. Um, we had this new pandemic that we had never come across. No one knew how to deal with it, but they were brave. Doctors,
brilliant.
nurses, everyone, care workers, those who are working in the homes, I find them incredible professionals, and I'd like to give them credit for that because I don't know if I would be able to do what you guys did. I was one of those. So I had to go back and forth still, and work. But even just trying to getting on the train, being in the same train carriage as someone or sitting on a flight with someone, you're kind of like, oh, don't sit next to me. Someone just has a little sneeze and you're like, oh God, do they have COVID?
Mm,
And you guys had to live through this. You
mm,
had to work and, help with support these patients.
mm.
And so I think you guys have got a different breed. You are definitely a different breed of creatures of that God created for us. And thank you for doing what you guys do, and we do appreciate it. I just wish our government could do much better for you
Uh,
guys. However, we won't talk
that's
about that
another
yes
story.
just yet. That's another topic.
Mm.
Um, and on that note, for today, we are going to stop here. For the next episode or part 2 of this series on career change leading into mental health or mental well-being in corporates or at work, we will focus on how Chipo managed the change in the career that she chose to, which was nursing, as we mentioned earlier, and specializing in mental health. But what she's observed within the health sector versus what she also actually witnessed or observed in the corporate office world as well. And on that note, we will see you next time. Thank you for listening. Thank you for subscribing. I am going to encourage you to subscribe and follow, please, on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcast, and several more podcast platforms. Let's make this conversation bigger because it's helpful to share experiences and to learn from each other. Let's make it work. Let's get everyone on board. Thank you. If you find this podcast beneficial or interesting, please press follow, like, or subscribe. Lastly, and of course, don't forget to spread the word by sharing. Thank you for listening.